Hola, hola. ¿Qué tal? Veo que ha funcionado esto de tener el descanso para charlar entre todos. Ahora vamos a retomar la conversación. Tenemos a nuestro ponente ya listo y preparado, así que, atención. Imagino que todos los que estamos hoy aquí recordamos Toy Story. ¿Recordamos esa fantástica película, esos acabados sintéticos que generaron los primeros ordenadores? Era el comienzo del 3D, ahí la verdad que los artistas no tenían mucho margen de maniobra porque era lo que había. Sin embargo, aquella película generó una tendencia en la cual muchas de las producciones que había se parecían entre sí. Bueno, ese era el inicio. Un momentito de silencio, por favor. Silencio, porque es que nuestro invitado merece la pena. Así que, por favor, ahora, escuchadme, que hay que presentar a nuestro invitado. Hablábamos de esos inicios en el que el 3D echaba a andar. Desde ese instante hasta ahora ha evolucionado muchísimo, lo sabéis bien, y las herramientas son potentísimas, os permiten desarrollar todo ese potencial visual que tienen los artistas. Y es precisamente en esa evolución donde en nextlabgeneration ponemos el foco y donde vamos a centrar la siguiente ponencia. Vamos a hablar de los motores de render, de todas las posibilidades que nos brindan, y para eso tenemos, le he dicho que le iba a presentar como el mejor, pues le vamos a presentar como el mejor. Él es Lino Grandi, que nos viene a visitar. Adelante, sube el Lino. Me ha preguntado, ¿cómo me vas a presentar? Digo, como el mejor, le ha parecido bien, así que aquí tenemos. Él es artista 3D en Otio con OctaneRender y viene con muchas ganas también, así que adelante.
Gracias. So, hi everyone. Let me, not this one. Okay, I'm Lino Grandi, and I'm a 3D artist. I'm a generalist, and I work for Otoy, which is a company that develops OctaneRender, which is a GPU-based render. And it's very, of course, it's very fast because it's GPU-based, and it's mostly being conceived for photorealistic rendering. So let's just take a look at some of this. There is no audio, so no worries. Yeah, I take care of the Octane version for Blender. So I tend to test the new feature. I have a pretty active Instagram community. And on my Instagram profile, I publish, videos showing the new features. Here it is. And it's not just, this is spectrum, this is some cel-shaded smoke, and this is something that we will go through during this presentation. This is smoke, a toon-shaded smoke. But yeah, I love photorealism, but I've always been fascinated by anime, Japanese anime especially old ones. I love any anime, really, any good one, but I love anime from the 90s especially. And I think there's one anime that if I could choose, to bring just one on an island, I would bring that one, and it's Ghost in the Shell. It's a movie from 1995. How many of you have watched it? So quite a lot. But I prepare a little edit about it, and I hope just to get in the mood of what we're going to see.
Ангелы и демоны кружили надо мной, рассекали тернии Млечные пути, не знают счастья только тот, кто его злого понять не смог.
So one of the targets in my life has always been to be able to produce something like that in 3D, which is a long shot because this was all made by 2D animators, and I think it's, well, you saw it. It's just a piece of art, and I think it's really the best anime ever. It's my opinion, of course. And yeah, when we let me turn off the volume. Turn off the volume. Okay, and yes, if we take a look at what characterized toon shading in this specific case, well, there are two things that are really important. There are more, but if we look at the visual side of things, there is the shading, and you can see how the shading is really simplified. We have just two colors, one for the shadows and one for the bright areas, the lit areas. And we can also have specular highlights, but that's the beauty of it, of the shading, is the simplification. We're talking about animation. So I think that since we're watching like 25 frames per second, or 12, it depends on the step, we don't need so much information. We don't need to provide so much information. The less, the better. And yeah, so that's the first aspect, so the shading. The other one is the edge tracing. So we can see that there is a very precise contour around the face, around the nose here, and it's very artist controlled, of course. And if you can nail those two things, those two aspects, you're pretty close to getting a pretty good toon-shaded static image, of course. And then there is animation, and that's a whole, different topic. We don't have much time for that. So let's go and let's show something real. Okay, this is Blender and with Octane. And why I'm using Octane for toon shading? Why I decided to try to push it for toon shading? Well, GPUs are really, really fast to render a photorealistic frame, okay? But if you use a GPU to render a toon-shaded image, well, that's even faster because you don't have complicated calculation like refractions and reflection. So NGI, of course, global illumination. So basically you have a real-time render when you're aiming for toon shading. So in this case, I'm just starting the render. Of course, the data is loaded into the GPU memory. This is a laptop, okay? So it's not super powerful, but you can see it's already pretty amazing. This is not a model of mine. I just purchased on internet, and I was liking it because I like the way the muscles are modeled and are are intersecting the body. It's pretty cool, and it's ideal for a toon-shaded character. So now I'm using just a universal material, which is a principal material in Blender, basically. And I can change the color. I can make this metallic. I can change the roughness to control the speculars on this model. But I don't want that, of course. I want toon shading. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this material into the Octane toon-shaded material. So toon material, this one. So we have the toon material. You see, it's simplified. There are so many controls. And so let's go through those controls briefly. The figure now is black, and that's normal because we need to. It doesn't respond to global illumination anymore. It responds to specific lights. And in this case, I'm going to add an Octane toon directional light. So I can, rotate it and get this. Let me move this in another collection, the main one. So as you can see, I can rotate the light, and I can see the effect on the model. Now, back here. There are some things that we need to fix. First, those jagged lines here. And there is this option, Smooth Shadow Terminator. Now, you see the result is way better than it was before. Also, I can change the diffuse color, the main diffuse color. But this is not the kind of control I want. So, yeah, let's go on. You can also see this kind of black edge around the model. And this is not good for edges, of course, because it's not controllable. It's just an incidence angle, on the surface, and that's not great. But if we make it white, for me, it becomes a pretty interesting rim light, basically. You can see the effect here. We can also control how much of it we want on the model. I want something like this. And yeah, so what about the shading? Because now we have like 3 different gray levels on the body. There is this dark gray, this middle gray, and this white. The white is due to the specular, so let's just make the specular less present and change the roughness so we can make it smaller. And then I really want to control the colors of the area, the shaded area and the lit areas. So I can add this Toon diffuse ramp here. Now it's acting like, font shading, it's not great. But if I put those keyframes really close, I'm getting something better for sure. I can change this color to something brighter, something like this. But again, this is not what I want, because you can see there is some soft shadowing going on in the Terminator. So we change the interpolation to constant, and that's gone. Okay, and I can control this by moving just one keyframe. It will always be super sharp, which is what I want. But while I specify just 2 colors, this gray here and this white, actually, let's make this totally white, like this. I have three colors once again here. This is this dark shadow color, the one I defined, this color here, and the lit color. So this happens because there's an option here called Toon Shadow Ambient Color, which I can change, and this is controlling the color of the shadows. But it does it in a global way, which I don't like, because every material in the scene needs to be very specific with colors. I don't want all black shadows and so on. So if you put this to totally white, you get exactly what you want. So now the shadows are this color. You can just, do something like this and change it. You can do crazy stuff, actually. Not so crazy, just, different setups and get something like that. Let's undo this. And something else that we can do, if we don't want this totally sharp transition, and we just want to get some other kind of MPR render, we can add a procedural texture in the bump node here. Something has changed already, and I will add a UV transform and set one of the dimensions to be really small, so we can get this effect. We can rotate that, and get something like this. We have gamma controls, so, we can really control how this looks. And why not? If we want, we can just duplicate this, not the material, okay. Add a multiply node here, and add another texture, and this time we can rotate the texture differently. So let me multiply, okay, let's set the gamma to 1. Okay, so now I have a different effect because I have 2 textures, 2 procedural texture oriented in different ways. They interact, of course. And yeah, that's pretty pretty handy to create different looks. But now we still have a problem. We don't have edges around the model. To do that, I use two different techniques. I use the inverted Alt technique, which consists into duplicating the geometry, expanding it along the normals, and flipping the normals. Then you assign any material to that object, like a black material, and you can get edges. So let's do that. I already have some geonodes, an object, which is just a plane in the scene. It should be like here. It's not very visible, but it's there, believe me. So it's edges, this one. And yeah, I'm going to create a new geometry node setup here. I'm going to drag this whole collection. So now this node contains all the geometry information in this collection, so the body, the eyes, everything. And yeah, if I connect it here, I'm just creating a duplicate. If I use an extrude mesh node set to something like let's start with 0.1, and I put it here, you will see that now my model is inflated like this, which is what I want, but I don't want to use this material, so I will use a set material node and specify this material that I already prepared. It's just a Toon material, black Toon material, with this node that helps, inverting the normals of the polygons. So this is really too much, so I think 0.01 is going to work pretty good. Just have to wait. And now you see we have some very nice contour edges, inverted all edges. This could be enough, but I really want to be able to draw the intersection edge for the pectorals and the muscles in general. So to do that, I can, for example, add a curvature texture node. So this goes into the diffuse. And, oh, not here, sorry, in this main material. So curvature texture. And you can see what's happening here. So I need to invert the effect of this node because I want black edges, and also, yeah, this is a little trick. Just set the gradient setting to constant. Okay, why it's like that? Because the strength and the radius. Okay, so yes, with the radius set to 0.01, we're going to get a lot of edges, too many. That's because the geometry node object is participating to the curvature. We can exclude it. So if we do this, many of those lines are going to disappear. Still not perfect, but it's just about adjusting some parameters in the curvature node to get a better result. So this is one of the ways you can use to get edges. So we started from a PBR model, and now we ended up with something that looks more hand-drawn for sure. So let's go to another scene now. I'm going to add this. Okay, this is a complex setup, a more complex setup for edges, which are really vital, and controlling them, it's one of the most important things. So those are two models from the big, medium, small collection. Beautiful assets, but they have been modeled for PBR, for photorealistic render. So they are not perfect with edge shading, but as you can see, we have a pretty good result. I'm using some compositing techniques here, so I can separate. I've created some custom AOV, some buffers I can use. So we have those edges here. We have the combination of the two kind of edges. This is just the inverted all edge. And as you can see, it's not tracing all the geometry edges. It could be cool because, again, you don't need too much information. 2D artists are not going to draw everything, especially if you have a lot of details in the scene. So yeah, and then we have the final compositing with the Toon material and everything. I mean, I think those are like 3 million polygons, and this is a laptop, so still real time, which is just great. If you try to do the same using, for example, grease pencil line art right now, this is going to be really slow, and you will only be able to see the effect from the camera. I'm in perspective view, and that's pretty interesting. So, well, the time is good. Let me load another scene. Of course, I can change the thickness of the edges, but okay, let's run a little bit. Now, this model here. Again, I love Ghost in the Shell, and I created my personal version of it, of the main character. It's coming. This is another pretty heavy character. And yeah, so this is, of course, a 3D model. And what is interesting about this, first, something very important. When you work with cel shading, the camera lens are really, really important. This is a very narrow lens, and if you can see, if I go in perspective mode, the model looks like that, which is not that great. And you can use like this kind of focal length when the shot, when the character is far from the camera, okay? Not so far, but you know, not so close. If it's close, you really need to increase the narrowness. So 300 millimeters, now it's going to look way better. But if you can go like in an orthogonal view and use an orthogonal camera, and that's going to be perfect. So what about this model? I made a setup that allows me to basically, let me select the face, perfect skin. Sorry for this mess, I didn't have time to, to put some order here. But yeah, so something pretty cool that can be done is changing the shading in real time in the preview. So here I have like 4 different kind of shading, and that is true for the lips as well. And I have separated control for that. So as you can see now, I can change the color of the lips and use the one that I think it's better suits the character or the scene. You know, you can have several setups. You see, in this case, the lips, the lid part of the lips has the same color of the lid part of the skin, but if you want, you can make this a little darker. I don't know, it's really visible. I think so. So this is cool, and I made, of course, I made the same for the eyes. The eye color, it's something else that can be changed in real time. So we can have blue eyes, we can have like red eyes or green. Okay, this is great. But okay, so let's go back to violet. Also, I implemented some controls for the eyes. The eyes are totally procedural. It's not a texture map. And what you can do is, you know, change the sides of every single element. Like this is the specular highlight, and it can be, you know, moved around. Same for the pupil. Let me select the pupil. Where is the pupil? Okay, I hope it's that. Now, So the other one, okay. So it can be made big and, or really small. So this is very important. It's an important control. Now something else. You can see there is this specular highlight on the nose, but specular highlights are often the thing that's going to show that the shot is in 3D, because they travel across the surface if you move the camera or the character. And I really like the idea to have a fixed specular. So yeah, I can rotate it around the character, and this will be still where I put it. And to do that, I'm using this kind of object, so I can make a really big specular light. It makes no sense. I can move it around, and so on. Now, something else you really want to control. Where is the sun? Sorry, light. Okay, so light. Okay, so if I rotate the light, I can dramatically change the lighting of the scene, of the character, okay? Sometimes, you don't want some of the shadows you see. So in this case, it's pretty easy if you don't want those, because you just select the object that is projecting the shadow, and you turn off shadows. So now they're going to disappear. And but something else that is very powerful and it's possible to do is to control exactly where the shadows and the lit areas are. So if I select the right material, the skin here, and use this control, I can now use some, that was too much. Okay, I can use some objects like this one to add shadows where I really want it, or to add light where I want it. So if I want, this area to be lit, I can do that. Now I'm using some spherical objects, but I could really use any shape, which makes this really, really powerful, and you can animate it. So, that's pretty powerful. Okay, we don't have much time. Let's go to this. Okay, actually, that's cool. So there is this scene here. And let me show you the related video. I have some with different styles. I animated this really, really quickly, so pardon me. But it was just to test the different kind of shading that you can achieve in a single shot. So yeah, we're going to see this in real time. So I'm going to start the render. Okay. And even in this case, what I can do is to change the lighting setup. So as you can see now, is this one? Yes. As you can see now, we have just two different colors, one for shadow and one for the lit area, same for all the objects in the scene, all the materials in the scene. If I change this, now we have 3 shading areas. Now we have a very dark shadow with 3 different, 2 additional, gradients. This is just black shadows and color. You can see it very clearly here in the. Let me show you this, because this is absolutely real time, and that's crazy. And then there is this version, which basically is without any shadow. So it's just plain color. It can be a style, that you can use. So That's pretty nice. Now something, I can do the same, of course. I can do the same. Let's go back to the first shading setup. I can do the same for the specular highlights. By specular highlights, I mean, this kind of bright steam on the surface. And yeah, I have some setup I can just test on the fly on the whole scene. No specular at all. Yeah, a lot of speculars and so on. So yes, this is it. And now, what about animation? I'll be really quick here. Of course, when you're animating anime, you're animating using different steps. It can be step 2, step 3, step 4. It can be step 1 for very fast motions. But it really depends, and you really want full control over it. The problem is that if you animate using like a constant interpolation, like to get the steps, then if you want to use any simulation in the scene, that's going to be a problem, because simulations wants real interpolation, something that is continuous, okay? So even adding like air, well, that's not a great example. I mean, adding like a tail, okay, that is moving with dynamics. If the animation isn't stepped, that is going to be clunky. It's not going to work. So there is something really nice in Blender that lets you. Let me simplify the scene because we will need that. So I'm going just to turn off the geonodes, okay, and simplify the scene like this. So now, if I hit play, this is playing a step 1. It's totally smooth, okay? But there is something great implemented in Blender, which is this option that lets you basically create an item. It can be any item. It can be an empty, and keyframe it. So if you keyframe it and then you generate, where is view? Viewport render keyframes, this option will use the selected item to just render the stepped animation. So if I'm going to play this now, you can see it's not fluid anymore. It's just using the step defined by this option. I made a version that works with the render, because this just works with the preview. And yeah, so thanks ChatGTP for that. And yeah, I think that's all for now, because it's question time, if you want. So thank you. If there are any questions, of course. Okay.
When you are making the shading, the animation of the shade.
It's the microphone working, because it's. Now it is. Okay.
Ahora sí.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you make the shades on all your character and then you animate it, do you need to make some special keyframes in between, or no, or you just put your art on and you just have a plugin that makes all the job? Or
you're referring to the materials, or
no, to the shades, to the all shading part? Yeah.
Well, now I show you a very complicated setup at a certain time. You know, it was this, like, really. It's not that complicated, really, even because it's not the real one. Let me actually, yeah. Yes, let's go full screen. So this looks complicated, maybe, but it's way more complicated than that, because there is a group node going on. So, but yes, this is totally transparent. I just touched like 2 controls to change the shading, you know. But you can predefine pretty easily the Toon ramp gradients. You see, this is the shadow area. If you use the value of 1, This is the Toon ramp used if you're using a value of 2. Basically, there is this Toon ramp switch, which is a node that accepts a value from you. And according to the value, is using input 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So you can predefine. Of course, it's just, this must be artist-driven. I can't imagine what you want to do with the character. Yeah. But I can provide an easy way, yes, to just set it up. This is what, should be of interest for you. This is for the speculars, and this is for the toon shading.
Yeah, but because we are coming from 2D, and then when we make shades on the face, for example, of our character, we need to make like several drawings of the, depends on the movement of the character. So we following the.
Okay,
thing,
that's
so,
more controlled by lighting.
Okay.
The light is going to take care.
Okay, so
okay.
you just put this what you want, and then the light makes the.
Yeah. A proper
okay.
position and light, a proper animated light. You may want to animate the light, because some rotation, some position look better on the character in that from the camera perspective. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Hi. So is this extra object with keyframes that for stepped animation, it's something like an add-on for?
The one working with the preview is standard in Blender.
Oh, yeah.
I made this add-on, again, thanks to ChatGPT. That helped a lot. Once you can explain things, it's really good. And yeah, it works with Octane. I didn't try with Cycles or Eevee. I'm not sure it's going to work. But yeah, it can be done if I did it in Octane. And it's great, being able to just animate step one, linearly with curves without taking care of constant interpolations. It's great. So.
And how do you tell the preview to follow these keyframes of this object?
You just, it's following the information, the keyframed information on the selected object. So if you have an empty, and you keyframed frame 1, then frame 4 is going to render frame 1, then it's going to render frame 1 other 2 times, sorry. So frame 2 will be the same as frame 1. Frame 3 will be the same as frame 1. Frame 4 will be the new keyframe. And it's pretty interesting. It's powerful. When I discovered that, I say, okay, that's going to help a lot.
So the preview is launched with this object selected, and then the preview.
And then it's okay. I have just 2 minutes. I can do that. Wait, because it probably is not so evident because this. I could create more gap, between the. I'm going to delete, a bunch of frames in the middle. Okay, and then with this object selected, which is just a null, I name it frame step render because that's what my add-on wants. I'm going to view and viewport render keyframes. And now we'll see that when we're playing the animation, it will be super stepped. It's basically going to stop a lot. View render, view animation. Okay. Oh, come on. I don't know why it's not playing. Let's try again. Render, view animation again. I'm not touching anything. Okay, you see? It's just stopping. So it's respecting the keyframes you put on the object. For preview, my animator asked me to try to do something working directly in the viewport when you hit play. We managed to do something, but the timing is not always so precise. So this is for sure still needed. Making a preview. So it's.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, we have just 1 minute and 15 seconds. Yeah, but we need time.
So this for the anime
Look, yeah.
Anime looks great. But what happens when you have these objects in the distance, far away, like in the robot, like the big robot in Ghost in the Shell that is
Yeah.
far away?
Yeah.
Because normally I find a little more trouble with things that are far away. So how the simplification
Yeah,
works?
you know, edges are going to become thinner and thinner on the distance because they are generated geometrically. So you don't need any function. You can make them disappear. As with the same method I've used to lead some areas or add shadows to some area, I can delete the edges if I don't need them. For object on the distance, you have to simplify them. So visually, so it makes a lot of sense. It can be automated because you can provide like a z-depth information to do that. And it's something manageable, absolutely, absolutely. And we're done. Okay, so thank you everyone.